From competing in the Olympics as a speed skater to now doing figure eights around the sports media universe, it's Lydia Murphy-Stephans. She joins me. She needs no introduction. You know what she has done, but this is an opportunity to learn about sort of her psyche and on a deep level what it has taken for her determination to come out, not just in the sports sphere as a competitor, but also in the business sense as well, and also learn about being a mom as well. It's the full complement here on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio and also the Tennis Channel. Lydia, thanks so much for doing this. Really excited to tell your story.
Bryan, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
Well, we're going to have a lot of fun here. And obviously, what you've been working on with Sports Bubble is something I want to touch on as well as CEO and founder. But I want to start here. How do you like to be recognized?
Okay, you're not even giving me a softball question at first. Like I thought, like you were gonna just tee up something easy. I like to be recognized by everyone in name as Lydia. Truly, even my kids who are now 19 and 20, I share with their friends, like, please call me Lydia. And I like that personal level, sort of introduction, if you will, but also connection with people. I am a mom. I am a partner. I am a wife. I am a friend. I am, a mother. I'm all of those things, and I'm a media executive. But when it all comes down to it, I'm just Lydia, just an average person, who's a little ambitious.
How did you forge that people person identity that you're all about that seeps through as the mom, as the media executive in other areas of your life as well?
I'm the youngest of four kids in our family, but my parents, blue collar family, my parents, working class, were super family and community oriented and always invited others to stay with us, whether it was relatives who moved in for a long period of time or family friends. And so that sense of community, that sense of people and what people do, we all come in all different shapes and sizes and thinking. And for some reason, Bryan, it has just fueled me. I have been on the beneficiary end of the kindness of others, sharing things with me, taking me under their wing, exposing me to certain things. And I think I just naturally have tried my best to pay it forward and be sort of understanding and as communicative as I can be when I can be.
And you've done such a great job at that, Lydia. I don't even know if I should say your last name because you want to be called Lydia. So when I do sort of the kind of reminder of who's my guest, I'll just say Lydia. As you mentioned earlier, Lydia is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley with Tennis Channel. The idea of giving back, and I'd love to talk about that a little bit as well later on in this conversation. But for all the people whose lives that you've affected, Lydia, from the standpoint of you listening to them, but also finding times to listen to yourself, when do you know, and how has that showed out in your career, when listening to yourself was the most beneficial thing for you in what you were able to accomplish?
Hmm. It's no secret, I am a driven and highly focused person. My wife, my kids, my colleagues, my friends will often refer to my ability to focus, sometimes myopically, on things. And it's fueled by passion. And so sometimes I think those of us who have that, I don't know, sort of personality trait, if you will, we get lost in our thoughts, and yet at the same time, I have learned that my focus alone doesn't really move the needle, if you will, that it's often drawing from and relying on and appreciating what others can do to further that. And so I'm even though I participated at a young age in the sport of speed skating, which is an individual sport, I'm very much a team person. And I've had the luxury of being, specific to that sport, part of the US speed skating team, which was unique in that the men and the women were on one team and had the same coach. And so I think from a very early age, I've learned to maybe utilize my individual traits and often benefit by those traits being complemented by other people and other people's strengths and thoughts.
Why do you think it's more satisfying seeing you being a part of a team and accomplishing something than just individually getting somewhere?
Mm. You know, there's a big difference between being independent and being a loner.
Mm.
And I am a very independent person, but I am in no way a loner. I thrive around community and people. I was so painfully shy, Bryan, when I was a child. I was the youngest of four, and my brother Michael, who was a year older than I was, spoke for me. I didn't
Wow.
even start talking, sort of publicly, probably until I was 3.5, maybe even four. Not because I couldn't, but because I was so shy, and he was right there as my buddy to do things for me. And so I have worked throughout my life to overcome my shyness, and and I've often found myself throughout my career um, being in positions where I couldn't be shy anymore because I was given the opportunity to be a voice in the room. And often, as you know well, in my career early on, when I was with ABC Sports and other places, I was often the only woman in the room. And therefore, if I was shy and didn't speak up, I was underrepresenting the opportunity that women had. And so I've sort of worked throughout my life to sort of navigate between being independent, being shy, not being a loner, but really enjoying and relishing community.
What do you think spawned the shyness early on and in finding yourself and who you are and why you thought that maybe it was a challenge early on for you?
Mm, right? I don't have the answer to that. I have two children. My daughter also was so shy, and I really appreciated it when she was a child. I mean, I think that that's a sort of naturally we're born with certain characteristics, and shyness is one that people can just you're born with, right? And some people carry that obviously throughout their lives, and others still have it, but like me, maybe are able to navigate through or come up with tools to overcome the shyness.
There's a brilliance in shyness. Like you said, there are good things that came out of that for you. And to know where you have been since those younger ages of when it was so hard to get what you wanted to say and communicate, what would the younger you say to the now you to
Mm.
see what you've done to combat that and overcome what at the time when you were 3 or 4 years old must have been seemingly a Herculean task to try to overcome.
Well, interestingly, I recognize in people who I have worked with, whether they have been my colleagues or they've reported into me, right? And I've recognized now very easily when someone is shy, and
Mm.
I I I understand it, and I often sort of like maybe motherly instincts, kicked in where I would maybe work with that person a little bit more and say, I know you have the answer to this, or I know you're capable. Sort of like what worked for me isn't necessarily going to work for someone else. However, as a manager or as a friend or a colleague, I certainly have embraced or supported people who I see are shy, and maybe their shyness has prevented them from having the confidence to speak up at a certain time or to do certain things. And so I think naturally I'm a very nurturing person. When I'm working with people, I often have said to teams of people who I'm working with, particularly when I was at Pac-12 networks, like, we all spend more time together than we do with our family, than we do with our friends, and therefore we need to respect each other, we need to understand each other, we need to support each other. And so there's that nurturing factor that I've learned over the years, whether it was in my family or my skating days or something else, that I have carried forward when I've been in larger media positions, if you will.
For all the nurturing that you've done for others, how do you nurture yourself right now?
Hmm. I practice self-care. I really do. I eat well, I exercise, I enjoy life. I self-care is important. I nurture myself. I also have an amazing life partner. I have my kids who are now young adults are like I'm so proud of who they are as people. They're kind. And so I think I'm in one of those situations where you give and you get back. And so I'm on the receiving end of a lot of love and nurturing from others.
What does that love look like on the receiving end from your kids? And how do they show that to you?
Oh my gosh, they're amazing. Well, I with Sports Bubble, for example, because it has been a passion and an obsession. Um, they were homeschooled like all other teenagers during the pandemic, which meant I had two teenagers in my close proximity, and they were in my focus group, but I also put them to work. And so the nurturing came and the giving back came when I was working on something that was very forward looking, making it easy for people to access live sports events on mobile devices. And how would young people who are accustomed to getting things very quickly through TikTok or WhatsApp or whatever, how are they going to respond? And so the giving back was sharing with them. And I have always shared with them what my work life has been, because I've had these demanding jobs since my kids were born. And so they often came to work with me or traveled with me. And so more recently, as young adults, teenagers, the nurturing and the giving back came truly in a give and take. And me respecting who they are as people, how they think, and that they're capable of thinking and doing things a lot different from the old mom.
Well, there's always going to be a part of you that they're going to hold on to that they remember and love from when they first remembered. But yeah, there's the old mom, but the new age mom. And what the new age mom right now is working on is, as you mentioned, Sports Bubble, and you kind of hit on what it's working on. But from the standpoint of what it's like thinking about something that hasn't been done before, in this particular sense, Sports Bubble, how does your mind work like that? Or can do that?
Oh, Bryan, I I can only share with you what it has been like for me, and I know that other founders have experienced it, which is I see it so clearly. And so because of my background as a sports media executive, because of my background as an athlete and a sports fan, because of the jobs I've had and the understanding of the sports media business, when I had the idea for Sports Bubble, it was presented to me because I experienced a problem that was a common problem for consumers, sports fans specifically, and for businesses in the live sports event content ecosystem. And so when I had that problem, and I'm a natural problem solver, I immediately had a vision of what the solution would need to be. And it was a lonely path because I saw it so clearly. And so fortunately, my family, who loves me so much and is very accustomed to my, here's how something's going to happen, and I'm a very hands-on, demonstrative person when I'm passionate about something. And I had my son and my daughter and my wife kind of nodding, going, yes, we see it too, we get it, like, like sort of like cheering me on, and which was amazing. And so it's also lonely because it hasn't been done before. And often when entrepreneurs and founders are working on something, they see it clearly and it doesn't exist. And so the onus is to put it in words and visuals and maybe even a minimal viable product that others could understand. And so for me, that was a 2-year path that involved surrounding myself with colleagues and friends who, in some categories were much smarter than I was, or much more experienced. And I could, they would indulge me in sharing what I was trying to do and what I saw. And then they would work with me on helping to codify it. So, for me, it's to get where I was when I first had the epiphany of this is what I want to work on, to where Sports Bubble is today, has been a 4-year journey.
And where's it going from here, and what more it
Uh,
could do?
Let me just say, I'm so excited and um and optimistic about where it's going. And so I believe that Sports Bubble will be the go-to uh, uh, company, the go-to platform, if you will, for people who are interested in sports. And it's, Sports Bubble itself is a platform that aggregates sports products and information and makes it very convenient and easy for people to access, and it elevates or adds value to all of the existing sports entities and products. So whether it's ESPN and people want to go to ESPN to watch something, or buy sports tickets, or get information on where and how to watch something, Sports Bubble will be the place. So that's more future facing. Right now, Sports Bubble's first product is the Watch Sports app. And it's software or an application that makes it super easy and fast and free for people to know where they can watch a certain sports event and connect in seconds. So, for example, tonight, right, Thursday Night Football is on Prime Video and it's on Twitch. So if somebody opens the Watch Sports app, they can click on Thursday Night Football. I think it's the Eagles Texans. They can click on, NFL Eagles Texans and click on Twitch, and they are watching the game on their mobile device in 5 seconds. That's it. So, that was the sort of idea that I had 4 years ago, was making it really simple and very easy and fast and free for people to get information and then get into the action that they were interested in. And we're there. And I'm really fortunate and blessed to have Pac-12 and Pac-12 networks, Fubo TV, DAZN, the LPGA, USA Speed Skating. We have 6 leagues and a handful of early distribution companies partnering with us. So we're in good shape. It's taken a lot. Quite frankly, if I knew 4 years ago that it would take me 4 years and all that we went through to get here, there's no way. I would have said,
Wow.
I'm good. I'm good. I got it. I know how to connect to it. It may take a little longer, but I've got it. But I think that was part of the journey, right? Nothing for me has ever come really easily in life. It's always been a real challenge. I've always had to persevere. And so why should this be different?
Nothing has come easy, but I don't think you would ever want, knowing you and learning about you, I don't think you'd want anything to be easy, because there's something about me that thinks, Lydia, that you really enjoy a good challenge. And there is this adrenaline rush to realize that there's never an option for anything but excellence in whatever you do. And obviously, your work in your resume speaks for itself. But to sustain that and to have that, it doesn't just appear. Do you, can you, where do you think that idea of being afraid and using that maybe as fuel of failure as a way to say, that's never going to be an option. I am always going to make it. And it shows time and time again over different stages of your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't accept failure as an option. I think that there's always a way. And I only say that, and I don't mean to be disingenuous at all. I only say that because many times throughout my personal life, throughout my athletic life, and throughout my professional life, I was leveled. I mean, I really like, we joke in my family, we really do. We joke about sort of like, I'm almost like the Roadrunners cartoon where it's like you get smack against something or you like hit a rock and explode. They're like, there it is. You just did it. And it's sort of like, it's comical in our family because it's like, yeah, that perseverance, right? And it's sort of like, I've learned through experience and often through a lot of pain that, when you fall, get back up. And some people aren't able to get back up, Bryan, like they're just not. And that's where family and friends and the kindness of others come in, and they pick people up, right? And they're like, we got you. And so whether it's been my own perseverance or the kindness of others, I feel like there's always been a way. And so failure is not an option, really. It's not, and I think that's why over the course of my career, certain people have hired me when they've had these jobs that have to get done. And I became, sort of like, Lydia will get it done. She'll figure out a way. And often I figure out a way, not individually. It's the team, right? It's sort of like, okay, we've got to get this done. We can't. I could give you an example. Pac-12 networks, right? I came on board and the mission was the networks needed to launch on August 15th in 2012. And when I was hired, I was told, yeah, around August, like you did that. And then what I learned was there was a stiff financial penalty for every day that it went by if it didn't launch. And so it had to launch on the 15th. And we had engineers and super able people telling us it can't be done. Like there's no way. There's like, this doesn't exist and this doesn't. And I'd say, yeah, I listened to them and I'd respect what they had to say. And I was like, yeah, but there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way, So we had plan A, B, C, and D in place. And all the way up until 30 seconds before we were ready to go live, I was like looking around at, Kai Weir and Leon Schweier and others, like, when we do the countdown, it's going to go on live. We're live, right? We have the backup satellite, we have this, we have that. And so, I've learned that I am that person who can lead, but I lead by example and with a lot of help.
It just happens. You just find a way. You said that, and I feel like that's the underlying theme of your life. In whatever you've done, it's just going to work out in one way or another. The fact is that, as you said, in Lydia Murphy-Stephans is with me, I'm Bryan Fenley. When it hasn't gone your way, there's always been, as you said, that person to pick you up. How has your wife been there to pick you up?
Well, she's an amazing, she's my best friend. She's my life partner, co-parent, and she's also an ordained minister who is a chaplain. And so a person of deep faith. And so, that's contagious and that's community. And so, at the end of the day, regardless of what happens, what transpires, how hard it's been, to have someone who truly knows you and believes in you, right? And to know that I could lose everything tomorrow, and I still have that person who thinks I'm great. Right, right, like it's just sort of like, that's it, it's that, like, has always been, yeah, is a rock for me, and I hope I've, I try to be that person for her as well.
It's amazing when you have that rock, there's really nothing seemingly you can't do. And everybody feels empowered by that rock. And to see how that's played its course in your life is very, very inspiring. The idea as well, and Lydia Murphy-Stephans is with me, I'm Bryan Fenley, of and touching a little bit before we wrap up this conversation on what you're doing now and the idea of visualization. I know that you're doing something that hasn't been done before. You're sort of hitting in uncharted waters and being this concentrated place where, with all the different streaming platforms, everything can be seen sports wise in one place, and you're making that user friendly for them. But visualization, the power of that, how do you tap into that? And how does that explain a lot of your successes here in what you're doing now, but even in prior stops?
I've always been a visual person, more visual than linguistically. I've always said I'm linguistically challenged, but visually, it's almost as if I have a video or photographs in my head.
Wow.
I absolutely, I see it so clearly. When I was a competitive athlete, I would just be able to meditate on visualization of what it felt like, what it looked like for me to skate. I would remember, I could replay races in my head, in TV, experiences in a control room. I loved being in the control room with all of the different monitors, and I could clearly see each one and sort of jump. I would be editing in my head. Nobody likes to watch sports with me on a large TV in our family, like, because I am directing. I'm like, wait, give me that shot, give me that shot. Wait, where's that? And so yeah, I truly have. It's almost like it's really just sort of photographs and videos in my head constantly, Bryan.
How hard is that to turn off?
Mm, I do have an on-off switch, and I think it's part of the focus. I compartmentalize well. When I turn it on, I could let it go unfettered, and when I turn it off, I can highly focus on something else that blocks it out. But when it is on, I'm definitely in my own world, and people have said, you did not hear one thing I said, did you? And I have been on the receiving end of that. I admit that it does happen. And I used to say, no, I was listening. And now I say, yeah, I have no idea what you just said.
But that's the kind of focus that leads to successful people doing wonderful things in this life. Like, you kind of need to have that resilience about you, that, as you said, that hyper focus to commit to something and to see it through. And so it's fun to see repeated patterns of that, Lydia, over the course of your career. And as you said, this is a team, whether it's what you were doing earlier in your athletic career, or the team at home, or the team with where in which you work. You are all in all of those stages are about empowering people. And I feel like I'm empowered having this conversation with you. Lydia Murphy-Stephans with Sports Bubble, CEO, founder, of course, ABC Sports, Pac-12 networks, the list goes on, and what she's done with Oxygen. I'm Bryan Fenley with Tennis Channel and Fox Sports Radio. Lydia, thanks so much for giving us a deep dive into your life and really understanding your mind, which to me fascinates me because it's such a successful career. But what goes on between those brain waves in the synapses firing? And I felt like we were able to tap into that.
Bryan, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate your time and interest.